A bit before the webcast, Debbie.
No, it's straight over to you now, Chair. We're live streaming.
Okay, good afternoon, everyone, and welcome to the remote meeting of the Outer North West Community Committee. My name is Councillor Paul Wadsworth, and I'll be chairing the meeting today. The Outer North West Community Committee covers Adler and Wharfdale, Guiseley and Rawdon, Horsforth, and Otley and Yeadon wards, and is a committee which ward councillors have the opportunity to discuss and make decisions about services and priorities in their local area, and also consider funding applications regarding local community projects and youth activities. I would like to start the meeting today by confirming that today's community committee meets the requirements of the council's constitution, even though members are in remote attendance, and that members of the public are able to view this via the live webcasting. As we begin the meeting, could I ask all attendees to mute their microphones unless they're invited to speak? This will avoid disruption from background noise. Members wishing to ask questions and make comment should do so by using the raised hand facility. In order to avoid any disruption of the meeting, should I lose connectivity, I propose that we adopt a vice chair who can step in my absence. I move that Councillor Barry Anderson is invited to be the vice chair. Does anyone would like to second that, please?
Second that, Chair. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Taylor. Is everyone in favour of that? Any objections or abstentions? Thank you. Could I now invite members and officers to introduce themselves and mute their microphones once they have introduced themselves? I will start with Councillor Barry Anderson.
Councillor Barry Anderson, Adler and Wharfdale ward.
Councillor Caroline Anderson. Councillor Campbell.
Good afternoon, Councillor Colin Campbell here.
Councillor Collins.
Good afternoon, Councillor Dawn Collins, Horsforth ward.
Councillor Downs.
Hi, Councillor Rick Downs, Otley and Yeadon ward.
Councillor Flynn.
Good afternoon, Billy Flynn, Councillor for Adler and Wharfdale ward.
Councillor Graham Latty.
Hello, Councillor Graham Latty, Guiseley and Rawdon ward.
Councillor Pat Latty.
Councillor Pat Latty, Councillor for Guiseley and Rawdon ward.
Councillor Lay.
Good afternoon, everybody. Councillor Sandy Lay, Otley and Yeadon ward.
Councillor Jonathan Taylor.
Councillor Jonathan Taylor, Horsforth and Rawdon ward.
And officers, Johnny Russell.
Johnny Russell, Localities Officer.
Carl Hinchcliffe.
I don't think Carl's with us today.
No, I don't think he is, sorry. Liz Jarman. You're muted, Liz. You're still muted.
Sorry, Liz Jarman, Head of Stronger Communities. I do apologise, everyone.
Okay. Debbie Oldham.
Good afternoon. I'm Debbie Oldham. I'm the clerk to the committee.
Mohammed Alaman.
Mohammed Alamin, Support Officer for the Communities team.
John Woolmer.
John Woolmer, Acting Chief Officer for Environmental Services.
Claire Smith.
Good afternoon, Claire Smith, the Antisocial Behaviour Service Delivery Manager for Safer Leeds.
Thank you. Moving on to the agenda, could I ask the clerk to go through agendas item 1 to 6, please?
Thank you. Under agenda item 1, there are no appeals against the refusal of inspection of documents. Item 2, there are no exempt items. Item 3, there are no late items of business. Item 4, could I ask members to declare any disclosable pecuniary interests? And I'll take silence as none. And we've received no apologies today, Chair. Item 6, there's been no submissions from the public for the open forum either today. Thank you.
Thank you, Debbie. Can we move on to item 7, which is the minutes of the last formal community committee meeting held on the 2nd of March 2020. Do members accept that these are a true and correct record? I'll assume the correct unless indicated otherwise. Thank you. Item 8, is there any matters arising from these minutes? Thank you. Can we move on to item 9, which is a
I think
report?
Councillor Collins has got her hand up, Councillor.
I can't see that. Go on, Councillor Collins, while we work out how to deal a hand.
It was just, Chair, that we've had meetings since March. Are we not having any notes or minutes for those? What's actually happened with everything that we've done since March?
Okay, Councillor Collins, they've all been consultative meetings since March, so that's the last official meeting of the Community Committee was in March. So those are the minutes which we are approving today.
I understand that, Chair, but what is going to be recorded regarding the consultative meetings we've had? Anything at all?
Okay, I'll defer back to Debbie, I think, for that. You're muted, Debbie.
Sorry, I wasn't actually involved in your consultative forums, so I don't have anything for the minutes. Or
I'll defer
notes.
to Johnny then.
Minutes have been done and they can be shared to ward members. We have a document of those minutes, but they've just not been published with these reports, as those were consultative meetings.
Is there any plan to publish them at all, Johnny? I can understand that things had to be done slightly differently because we needed officer support, but it wasn't that we're trying to keep anything from the public. So is there any plan to do anything with those minutes?
I can look into that. I can speak to Liz, who's my head of service, and see if that can be done after the meeting.
Thank you, that's fine.
Do you want to comment now, Liz? Oh, she's gone. Right. Liz is on the call, but not present at the moment. So can we come back to that, Councillor Collins?
That's fine, yes.
Oh, wait a minute.
She's on the phone though.
We're just trying to resolve the minutes, Liz. We'll come back to it, Councillor Collins. Can we move up, just temporarily move on to item 9, which is the new operational base for environmental services, and that's John Woolmer to take us through that item.
Thank you, Chair.
Yeah.
Thank you, Chair. Hopefully everybody has sight of the report that was provided for this meeting. I understood that the committee was interested in having an update, and I assume would have 1 or 2 questions how that relates to your area. The report is quite self-explanatory. It covers the fact that the new facility was first agreed back in 2017 by Executive Board, and more recently the final proposals were put again to Executive Board with some significant amendments to it and approved with the final cost in the November meeting. So it was thought wise to bring you an update on that, which, like I say, you've got the details in the report. I've provided information in the report around the original decision, the more recent decision, the rationale for moving to one facility for the city, and some reassurances, I hope, around the original work that was done to look at route designs to make sure they were efficient, but also they wouldn't have a negative effect on reaching all parts of the city. Also within the report, I've made clear, because I can imagine members on this committee would be concerned around the location of the Clean Neighbourhoods team for the West area. So just making clear that that is not part of this move. The West Clean Neighbourhoods team will remain based at Henshaw, because that's where it still makes sense to operate from most efficiently. That's it really, Chair. I didn't really intend to go into any detail other than that, because it's quite a detailed report. Just here to take any questions.
I don't see any hands, but it was a request of Councillor Lay that this report was brought. Do you have any comments, Councillor Lay? I see your hand now.
Thank you, Chair. Yes, I've got questions, of course. I wasn't expecting the brief summary to be quite so brief, so that's why I wasn't ready. John, I've read the report, of course. First of all, just on what little you've said there, you talk about there being significant amendments to the proposal between 2017 and 2020 when it went back to Executive Board in sorry, put my camera on. When it went back on the 20th of November. What were those significant amendments?
They were mainly around shoring up the specification of the building itself. So the original report didn't have as much detail that they would have met. It required planning consent. So lots changed in 2 or 3 years in terms of the requirements of such buildings. For example, in terms of environmental requirements that such buildings would require, but also we were clear around some of the exact specifications of the building. So, for example, in the original report, we didn't, and it was mainly around relocating the 2 refuse operations into one building and one site, whereas now we're also proposing to relocate the majority of the clean and neighbourhoods teams operations in the city as well. But the notable exception being the west area of the city where it's remaining Henshaw. So operations at Millshaw currently and Nostorpe Way and Nostorpe Gate would all transfer to this new site. So that's what I mean by significant. The actual more detailed work that have gone into the building as well in terms of facilities that it require. So, for example, we're now incorporating a full vehicle wash on site, which wasn't in the original specifications. So the refuse wagons can be washed on a more regular basis, which will help in terms of not just their aesthetic appearance, which is important, but more importantly, I suppose the actual condition of them, and we're hoping that'll reduce the number of maintenance and the amount spent on maintenance of the vehicles, often getting clogged up in the back. So that's it really, Councillor Lay.
Okay.
Significant enough to add quite an additional cost.
Yeah, no, that's fine around the amendments. I really wanted to talk around the process really of how our communities in Leeds Northwest currently get their refuse collected, where those vehicles come from, and whether there will be any loss of jobs from, or not loss of jobs per se, but how many affected staff who currently travel from our community to Henshaw will now be expected to travel into the new site. So just for my own benefit, if you could sort of, because I do notice that the report says that we've used 2 landfill sites, one on the east of the city and one in Bradford. So when wagons were perhaps in Otley picking up, or in Edel or whatever, and they become full and you see them trundling off to a landfill site, were they going to Bradford or to East Leeds? That's the first question.
In terms of that specific question, I don't know, because we're talking quite a long time ago, prior to the roof being operational.
Now they're going. Now they're going down to the Firth.
I assume that. Yeah, that's right. So since 2016, 2017, the black bins across Leeds are all collected now and taken to the one place, which is the roof, commonly referred to as the incinerator, which is adjacent site to the proposed new depot. So that's where all black bin waste currently goes to, and has been done for, like I say, for a number of years now across Leeds. So the routes are currently designed in that way to go to that depot, that facility to offload the black bin waste that's collected. Yeah. In terms of the new facility, that will provide us, like I say, with the facility complete, but right next door to the roof, which will give us a number of opportunities in terms of being more efficient. The first part of your question, if you remind me, Councillor Lay, what was the other issue you'd like?
The second question was, were there going to be any displacement of employees from the local area who will now be expected to go to South Leeds, I think, rather than the 2 or 3 miles perhaps around the Henshaw. I don't know whether we've got any staff that live in the community that work out of Henshaw.
Yeah, I don't know myself in terms of being able to provide you with specific information about how many staff live in the area and therefore would have to start work at a different part of the city. What I can say is in terms of the number of vehicles that currently operate from Henshaw, we've already moved at the beginning of this year the small number of garden waste brown bin collection vehicles that operated from Henshaw. They've already successfully moved and operating now from Nosethorpe Way. So that's already happened with the redesign of those routes. That was around, I think, about 4 wagons out of the 15 for the city. So it's a similar percentage in terms of the 60 or so black and green wagons across the city. There's around 15 of those that operate from Henshaw at the moment. I'm not sure on the exact number, but it's around 15. So those 15 would transfer those drivers, charge hands, instead of reporting in the morning to Henshaw, once this facility is up and running, they'd report for duty at the new facility. So the loaders themselves don't usually report for duty at the depots. They're picked up en route or meet on site. So most of those wouldn't be affected by this change. They'd still get picked up on the way to the route or an agreed pickup point. So it's only really going to affect, in the main, those 15 or so staff that would normally start at Henshaw and pick up the wagon. In the future, they'll be picking it up from the facility in Cross Green.
Okay. All right. Well, having read the report, I was a bit more, obviously, my initial concern was that this would be part of a phased closure of the Henshaw depot. I am somewhat reassured that you make and you underline it, that there are no proposals to move the Cleaner Neighbourhoods teams, and highways will remain there. At the end, you do talk about that facilities will be returned to asset management. I assume you mean they're the other depots that will be closed fully rather than Henshaw, which will continue to have 2 out of 3 services.
Absolutely, spot on. Everything you've just said then's correct. Yeah, and just to provide that reassurance, I'm pleased to see that you feel the report is giving you, just to have that personal reassurance around this, that we'll work closely with members when we come to actually move and reassure you at the time around the routes as they're redesigned, that this is to improve the efficiency and to improve the service we offer in your area, not to reduce it and not to mean that more routes will be finished. This is about trying to ensure that we complete more routes and be able to deal with issues as they arise more quickly and more efficiently. So I can give you that assurance. This isn't about a reduced service in your area. It's about trying to get an even more reliable service. And we'll work closely with you when it comes nearer the time of the facility opening. And as the route review happens, like we did with the garden routes, we'll work with you on that when we do the black and green routes to make sure that you feel reassured.
Yeah, I think one of the things that councillors see, of course, with the daily reports coming that we get of missed collections, and maybe the public wouldn't be quite so knowledgeable about, is actually Henshaw doesn't exclusively service Leeds Northwest, and many of our routes are serviced by the Cross Green facility anyhow. Which members of the public looking in might find quite strange, that actually, you've got a Leeds Northwest facility, you'd expect them to be servicing their local community, but very often they're not. And
that's, sorry, Councillor, that's a good point. And that's, as the report sets out, one of the reasons for that is that, and one of the reasons we need this new site is because Henshaw is just too small anyway for the existing operations that are working from there. So even if we wanted to, say we'd continued with 2 sites as a way of working, and let's say we wanted to move a number of routes to Henshaw that would make more sense in the way you describe, we couldn't anyway, because the facility is over capacity as it is.
Okay. Chair, I've said enough really, wherever you are. Are you there? Oh yeah, you're up in the corner. I've said enough. Thank you, John.
Thank you, Sandy. I see Councillor Collins' hand is raised as well.
Thank you. John, when the wagons pick up the brown bin waste and the green bin waste, where do they take that? Because it's obviously not the roof. I mean, will those bin wagons be out of the same new facility? Will they then have a longer journey, or I'm just trying to work out whether everything is pretty much in the same place or not?
Yeah, sorry, good question, Councillor. The green bin waste for the city all goes to a facility just on Dewsbury Road near Beeston. And so all the city's green bin waste goes there for sorting and then recycling. So nothing will change there. All those wagons will operate from the new facility and go and tip off at the MRF. And similarly, the garden waste brown bin crews currently collect across the city and take it all to one or two facilities, one over at Esholt and then one over at Skelton. And again, that will remain the case, although we're just about to look at retendering that work to see if we can get a better deal from any other supplier. But all our routes will be designed in a way to so that we deliver, we complete the routes each day. And that's been the case, like I say, since we restarted in May, the garden routes. As you know, we redesigned the routes and rolled out new routes in May. And from that point, the crews have been working from Nostorpe Way anyway. So that's shown that we can operate from the one place. And the routes can be designed and work, because I think by and large, I know there are some exceptions of members have made me aware of. I think the rollout of the garden waste since May on new routes has been by and large a successful thing.
So the brown bin and the green bin waste routes aren't going to be any longer as a result. They'll either be the similar or smaller. Yeah,
exactly. And they'll all start and finish from the same place once this facility is up and running.
Thank you.
Okay, I see no more hands. So with that, John, I think we can release you to go to your next meeting.
Councillor Flynn
Thank you,
has put his
Chair.
hand up, actually.
Oh, sorry, just hang on a minute, John. Councillor Flynn, just in time there. I only just saw that. Go on.
Thanks. Nothing to do with the case in hand. I just wanted to know when the review of the collection routes was going to be restarted, John, and finished.
Yeah, another good question. Well, the honest answer is as soon as we can, in terms of starting it again. Obviously, COVID has thrown a massive challenge to us and continues to at the moment. We're looking seeing the waste collected up to about 15-20% extra in black bins at the moment, similar to what it was in May, June time. So we've got extra demands on the service at the moment, with up to between 30 and 50 staff at a time down for various COVID-related reasons. So our concentration at the moment is to keep the service going to our customers across the city and to prioritise that. I hope early in the new years we all do, things will start to get to some degree of normality, and let's hope that happens by, say, spring. And then I hope to get some of the review work up and running again. The timetable for the new depot is to have that built and operational about for this time next year. So really, in an ideal world, what we do is get the routes redesigned and implemented, obviously in time for when we move into the new depot, because the routes will be designed to start and finish from that location. But we'll work that through, and again, we'll make sure we liaise with board members and committees where we need to do close to the time around the implementation of those routes. It could be that we start those routes if we are able to before we move to the new depot, but then we've got to understand the implications of that will be that routes will be operating in a way they're not being designed to, because they're designed to run from the facility at Cross Green. So we won't introduce the new routes if we feel that we can't continue to deliver the service that we want to deliver. So we won't do it unless we feel confident that we can complete the routes each day. But that would be my best guess, that we'll finish the route redesign latest summer, and then we'll have the option of implementing the new routes around that time, or waiting until the depot is open. And we'll make that decision based on what's the best for the customers of Leeds.
Okay, any more hands? No. I'm quite confident, John, that we've no more hands, so I will now let you go to your next meeting.
Thank you, Chair.
Okay, can we move on to item 10, the finance report? Johnny, can you present the finance report, please?
Yeah, I will do. So item 10 is the Outer North West Community Committee Finance Report. So this report starts on page 19 in the pack. So I'll just bring the attention to paragraph 16 to paragraph 18, which is an update on the budget finance position. So paragraph 18 shows that the Community Committee is asked to know that there is currently a remaining balance of £60,549.13 remaining in this year's wellbeing. So on page 22 is the table of one. So this has got the breakdown of all the projects approved so far this year. We've put a position statement on the column on the right hand side, just updating ward members on the position of the projects, and then the remaining balance of £60,000 is then broken up into the ward breakdowns. So that's an update in terms of the projects funded so far this year. And then moving on to paragraph 19 are the following projects which are presented today for members' consideration.
Can I just stop you, Johnny, because Councillor Anderson's got his hand up, and so I assume it's about the previous paragraphs. So can I just let him come in before we do the approval of the projects?
I just wondered, I'm picking an opportunity to see if we can agree to ask Liz to take back our concern at the potential reduction in our funding next year, which is yet to be agreed, and that we have, as a community committee, we have serious concerns at the impact, because the council are determined to reduce the amount of money we get if we get still money in our areas, and because of the amount of housing development, whether gets directly to us or whether it gets directly to the parish councils, is a serious problem. And it's even more serious in wards like Horsforth, because they get little or no SIL money whatsoever. So they would have little or no money to invest in their community if this adjustment was made. It was just so that we can send a clear message back to the administration that we do not support them taking money from the community committees, and because they argue that the SIL money is going to replace it.
Can I take Councillor Lay's got his hand up?
Sorry, I'm just getting myself. Yes, I'd like to second what Barry is saying, really. His concern, of course, in 2010, this community committee as a whole had over £400,000 per year dedicated to it. And in those days, of course, some wards before my time took on some long-term projects like paying for CCTV. That was feasible when you had over £100,000 per ward, but now we're down into our 20s. It's much, much harder. And from my own point of view, within Otley and Yeadon, like the council itself, we are being asked to pick or we are seeing dwindling funds, but being expected to pick up those services to fund some of those things that might have been had revenue streams from elsewhere. On the part of the SIL, we have a neighbourhood planned, an approved town council, and the 3 ward members were just this morning speaking about the impact of our ability as city councillors to do anything when we have no SIL money coming to us coming forward. Yet the wider public, recognising that most of the green spaces and most of the playgrounds and most of the stuff that they want done is in the hands of the city council, and will find it strange that city council does not, either by itself or through its members, fund these improvements, but a town or parish council does. So I have serious concerns like Barry that what small wellbeing money we get is going to be even smaller to do the things that we're trying to do. So I second what Barry says, please.
Obviously, that Councillor Latty, are you waving your hand?
Just wanted to throw my 2 pence in with Barry and Sandy. I'm totally in agreement with that. And I think we've suffered a great deal from that point of view. That's all I want to say.
I am happy to take those points back to Liz. I can't ask Liz to comment at the moment, but I have got that written down and we'll take those back to Liz immediately after the meeting. So I'm happy to do that for both Councillor Anderson and Councillor Lay. I think that applies to everybody, even if you haven't spoken, that we are concerned about the reduction in funding to this community committee. With your permission, can I ask Johnny to proceed? Yes, Johnny, do you want to proceed?
Yeah, so I'll just carry on from the bottom of page 22. So the paragraph 19, which are the projects for consideration today. So paragraph 20 is the first project for consideration. It's 2 SIDS for the Guiseley and Rawdon ward. So proposing this to come out of the wellbeing budget of Guiseley and Rawdon, and it's for £6,800 for 2 SIDS to be installed at Queensway and Netherfield Road.
Well, I think we're happy, aren't we, colleagues? Yep, Johnny.
Yep. Moving on to paragraph 21 is another project for the Guiseley and Rawdon ward. This is the Guiseley Theatre, the improvement to the toilets. So this project is to install some purpose-built toilets which will have easy cleaning and can be easily maintained. So the total cost of this project is £10,284.95. The group have applied or are proposing to apply for £9,194.95, but I'm aware that the Guiseley and Rawdon ward members have discussed this project and are potentially proposing a different amount.
Go on, Councillor Latty.
Well, as you know, I wholeheartedly support this. I mean, if you're in the Guiseley Theatre and you want to go to the gents, you've got to go into the attic. And if it's a lady, they're not very salubrious surroundings to go to. So I think it's something that's long needed. And we were saying councillors don't get to do a great deal. This is the sort of thing that we can say we've facilitated Guiseley Theatre.
I think just to follow those comments, I think that the strength of the project and the requirement that this needs doing is that we are happy to fund the proposed amount. I would just add to the caveat that we weren't consulted about this project prior to the papers coming out. And I believe, I don't know whether you're able to comment, Liz, but I believe that now the position has been changed with regards to consultation of ward members on the application form. Can you comment on that?
Yeah, so we've decided to include a section in the application form whereby it asks if ward members or committee members have been informed or consulted on the proposed application.
Thank you, Liz. So that should alleviate that problem occurring in the future, but the strength of the project means that I think within Guiseley and Rawdon we're happy to fund it in its full amount, are we not? Yes, that's happy, Johnny. Can we move on?
Yeah, all right, thank you. The next paragraph is paragraph 22. So this is Paul's Pond in Adderley and Wharfdale. So it's the installation of 2 benches. So it's for Parks and Countryside to purchase and install the 2 hard wooden benches in the St Paul's Reserve. So the total cost of the project is 1,186, and that is the amount they are applying for, 1,186 from the Adderley and Wharfdale ward.
I'm getting a thumbs up from 2 of the Adderley and Wharfdale councillors. I maybe have to clarify, it's not my pond, isn't this? I have no connection with this pond, but they're happy to approve the application.
Yeah, okay. The next one is paragraph 23. So this is another one for Adderley and Wharfdale ward. So it's a Holt Park tennis court paths. So it's from Parks and Countrysides again, and it's to create 2 small paths to the tennis court entrances to stop the ground getting muddy.
Yeah, they're rather happy again.
Yeah. Paragraph 24 is an application for next year. So this is the summer bands in the park, which the Out and Off West Committee has funded the last 2 years. We funded it for this year, but unfortunately it got cancelled due to the pandemic. The project's not due to start until next summer, and when I received the application, I suggested that they bring this application to the next committee meeting in March, which would be more appropriate as it be next financial year. But they've told me that they need the funding secured at the start of December in order to guarantee the bookings of the concerts.
I assume, John, it's an equal split between Guys in Rawdon and Otley and Yeadon.
Yeah, that's correct.
I'm looking for people who are in favour. I'm getting Councillor Downs and Councillor Latty. Councillor Pat Latty. Councillor Campbell and Leigh, are you not in favour or abstaining?
I've actually verbalised that I'm in favour.
Have you?
Yeah, you obviously ignored it. And I've done the thumbs up.
I didn't see you or hear you. Councillor Campbell's on the phone now, but we'll assume it's going through, Johnny, with the majority.
Yeah, okay. And then following on from that, paragraph 25 is a list of projects which the community committee have approved by delegated decision since the last committee meeting. So I've listed them on the bullet points. Paragraph 26 is declined projects, and since the last meeting, the community committee have not declined any projects. Moving on to page 25 is the Youth Activities Fund. So just updating the Out and Off West Community Committee with the remaining balance for this financial year. So the remaining balance is £8,598, and table 2 shows the list of projects funded so far this year from the Out and Off West Community Committee. We'll move on.
Sorry, Johnny.
All right.
Is everybody happy with that? Councillor Pat Latty, do you want to make any comment? You don't have to do. No. Oh, Councillor Collins does now want to make a comment. Go on, Councillor Collins.
I had my hand up, my blue hand up, Paul.
Yeah, I've seen it.
Okay, just a question for Johnny. Sent you some information through last week, Johnny, regarding an application. How's that going?
Yes, so I received the application on Friday, and looking into the project, it's a project which will be taking place next financial year, so from April. And then as it is a youth activities funded project, it'll go to the children and families subgroup first for a recommendation, and then it will be presented at the next meeting in March. Right,
well, we will need to know before then though, because if Parks and Countryside are going to do the work in preparation, then they do it February time.
Yeah,
so
if that's the case,
we obviously can't have Boole lessons unless there's a Boole pitch.
Yeah, so if it is an urgent project, it can be taken out a delegated decision before the community committee.
Okay, can we try and do that, and then people know where we are?
Yeah, we can do. Yeah, that's fine.
Thank you, Johnny.
Councillor Leigh.
One or the other of the officers, if they know, possibly. What happened if these projects that are on hold and have been funded through this year's funding fall into next year's funding? Will the money that we've had allocated for this year carry forward into next year, or do we lose this year's money and potentially end up having to fund twice as many events next year from one single pot?
Liz, yeah, do you want to come in?
Yeah, so at the moment, Councillor Leigh, is the plan is that as would happen ordinarily, is that they'll be rolled over, but obviously with the council's position, financial position being as it is, then we need to make be mindful of that. But the view is that everything will just be rolled forward.
It would be for all community committees anyhow, wouldn't it? It would be all 10 committees that lose their money. We wouldn't expect the council's administration to pick and choose who to take the money off, would we? We'd expect it to be.
No, I think that anything, if there were to be any changes, then it will be done in an equitable way. So I don't think you need to worry about on that front. So, but at the moment, the plan is money. You'll all be aware that there's been a proposal put forward for a 15% cut on the wellbeing budgets next year.
Sorry, I didn't quite hear that, Liz.
I said that you'll all be aware that there's been a proposal in October for a 15% cut on wellbeing budgets.
Oh, I wasn't aware of that.
Yeah, it was in the it went to exec board in October. So that's
Two members have commented on that and raised an objection to that earlier in the meeting, which I appreciate you didn't hear, and I've got that down to take up with you. But I don't know whether members want to restate their comment or not. I think Councillor Anderson is wanting to restate his comment. He was waving at me a little minute ago.
No. I was just going to say, Sandy, that was what you and I backed up each other on at the beginning. Exactly what Liz has just said. It's exactly the same point. That because of the cutbacks that they're proposing and that the council are assuming that the money is going to come from SIL or other sources instead, we are going to be disproportionately hit in this part of the city. So that was what we were backing. That was all it was.
Oh, right. No, well, I agree then, Barry.
Yeah, you did. You
very
did.
much
You agreed.
I think Councillor, you seconded Councillor Anderson's point. I thought it was you, but
it was me.
Quite clear it was you.
But I wasn't aware of that proposal.
Well, that was a proposal. I think you seconded.
Oh well, no, I thought I was proposing the principle that just because you get SIL money doesn't mean to say you should have a reduction in wellbeing money. I didn't realise Barry was predicating it on a 50% reduction. Blinking heck, I won't be able to pay for one CCTV with what's left in wellbeing money, let alone 5 if we get 50% taken off us. Now I'm wound up, and that's just not what I want on a Monday afternoon. Thank you.
I think you get the gist of the earlier conversation, Liz, but I need to take that up with you outside the meeting.
Yeah, that's fine. That's fine. I'm happy to take I'm happy to take questions from members. I might not have the answers, but I can tell you how it is from a factual perspective.
Councillor Collins, you've got your hand up still. Is it still up or is it up again? Oh, you've taken it down. Right. Right. Is there anything else on the youth funding? Councillor Patlati, did you want to comment? You don't have to do, but do you want to comment as the chair of the subgroup?
Well, only the fact is that we normally have anything that hasn't taken place, that money comes back to our to the children's, the young people's. It isn't taken away from us, it comes back. And obviously this year a lot of the things have not taken place. I will just take one point in. The thing that Councillor Collins has brought forward, and all of a sudden we've made it a delegated decision. I would have liked to know about it, because though I'm going in May, I am still the chair of the Children and Families. And I would have liked to know what it is before we make this delegated decision about it, because we can have a meeting. In fact, Johnny and I and Mohammed are having a meeting tomorrow about the Children's Summit to see what we can do about saving that.
Would that be a good opportunity to discuss this matter with Councillor Collins as well?
Well, whatever's the best thing, but it can be.
Councillor Collins has got her hand back up again now.
Just wanted to reassure Councillor Latty that this is an application that came through on Friday. Johnny's still got to go through it and check that all the information required is there. It isn't my project, but it is a project I'm aware of. So I'm more than happy for the subcommittee to discuss it and review it. In fact, I'd actually prefer that as an independent body, really. So it's just up to Johnny, really, how quickly he can just check and pull things together and then get it to you, Councillor Latty.
Thank you.
With that, can we move on to the small grants? Yeah, Johnny, you move on.
1 second. So now on to page 26, paragraph 32. So it shows the amount of small grants and skips approved at the start of the financial year, and that there is a remaining balance of 6,831. That is broken down in table 3. So this is the small grants and skips approved this financial year, and paragraph 33 is in relation to the PSPO in Yeadon. So following a request from Otley and Yeadon ward members regarding the funding of this project, the project has actually been funded by Otley and Yeadon ward members, and I've invited Claire Smith, who was in attendance at the meeting, to discuss the funding relating to this, following a few questions from ward members.
Hi. So the PSPOs were introduced in 2014. They sit amongst a broad range of powers and tools, help tackle antisocial behaviour more at a local level. They're aimed at ensuring public spaces can be enjoyed free from antisocial behaviour. And if the rules around the PSPO are broken, the individual can face prosecution or a fine between £100 and £1,000. So the Leeds Antisocial Behaviour team, we facilitate the work around the PSPO. So we do all the evidence gathering, we look at the consultation, look at that kind of feedback, take on board any kind of comments, and then we can implement the PSPO going forward, working with our legal team. We also work alongside West Yorkshire Police with regards to any incidents that they're kind of aware of in the public areas, any hotspot issues that they have. The police actually enforce the PSPO, but they make referrals to our team, the antisocial behaviour team, and then we work with our legal team with regards to any action that can be taken. So we ask that the community committees support us with regards to the signage, and I'm aware that you have on this occasion. So support us regarding the new signage if needed to report any of the areas. So we have to accommodate if there's any questions around that.
Now they're not needing councillors. Are you happy with that? I see two hands up, Councillor Lay and Councillor Collins.
Gender dominate today, trying not to.
Sorry, I missed that, Councillor Lay.
Oh, I didn't know whether Dawn wanted to go first.
Thank you, Sandy. My question is, who actually owns the PSPO? Is it council or is it the police? I mean, it isn't a lot that you've asked us for, but as you can gather, our funds are getting whittled away quite regularly. So who actually owns the PSPO?
It's Leeds City Council. So it's a Leeds City Council. It's something that we kind of implement, but the police support us in the enforcement action around that. So they kind of are able to tackle any individuals with regards to the behaviour. Leeds City Council can also tackle the behaviour of individuals, but as you can appreciate, our officers are generally not out and about in the public as much as the police are. So it's a bit of a joint process, although it is owned by Leeds City Council. So they do all the evidence gathering regarding any breaches, they forward to ourselves, and then it comes out of our budget with regards to the legal action that's taken. So if anything gets referred through to legal, it's Leeds City Council, we pay for the cost of any action taken in the courts.
Okay, lovely, thank you.
Right, Councillor Lane now.
Thank you. Hello, Claire. It's nice to put a face to the name that I had a chat with on the phone. None of this is geared towards you, really, because as you noted on the telephone call, you're new in post, so all the historical stuff has absolutely nothing to do with you. But I will say it again. It is frustrating as ward members to have Safer Leeds come to the community committee over a number of years saying that they don't have budgets for things. and that there are some ward members who believe, and I'm one of them, I'm pointing at myself, who believe that some of these things should be centrally funded, because we keep talking about being the best city for whatever the 5 streams may be, but it appears that we're a disproportionate city, because if you're in other parts, perhaps less affluent or perceived to be less affluent, you get a lot more money, you get a lot more resources, you get a lot more support, and there is absolutely nothing wrong with that. Yeah, public service should support those people in greatest need, absolutely. Yeah, but it is hugely frustrating yet again for myself to be funding Safer Leeds work when you have no budget to do it. And if we hadn't have paid for it, it wouldn't get done, of course, because, and it wasn't important really in the scheme of things. The money isn't the issue. £21 or £25 a sign is piddling in the wind. It doesn't matter. It is the principle. We're paying for CCTV, which is Safer Leeds driven, £8,000 a year. I'm just heard that my wellbeing budget is about to be halved. How the heck am I going to be able to fund CCTV, let alone the other things? It also distresses me that the police are partners in this, and they have things like crime funds from the sale of criminal activity, etc. He being the police and crime commissioner, he sits on huge amounts of reserves allegedly. And what are the police doing? You know, it's frustrating. We did agree. You said that this wouldn't happen again. We've got 3 years to get it right. Yeah, if it does happen again, then we need to be having the conversations long before the day before we seal the documents, because I'm being an arse. Oops, sorry, I'm not supposed to say that. It's public.
No, you're not supposed to say that,
because I'm being difficult because of a matter of principle. Sorry, members of the public, the 5 of you that are watching. So that's all I'm going to say. All right, but certainly thank you for going through the process with me on the phone. I did appreciate it.
Do you want to come
No,
back
that's no problem, but I can totally appreciate. Yeah, just to say that I totally appreciate the frustrations. You should have been made aware well before kind of like the last minute. That's something we'll look at kind of going forward with the officers that kind of dealing with that. I mean, I'm not aware of kind of people it's a partnership approach, and they are quite engaged in the process around the PSPOs, and they kind of do work with us to try and tackle that behaviour. And as for ourselves, it is mainly around kind of the officer time, and we do have to pay for kind of the legal intervention there. So it's not just that we're kind of coming to you and expecting you just to pay, and like you say, you totally appreciate you can look at a reduction in funding going forward. It is just a joint approach in trying to tackle the behaviour that's caused in these areas.
I have to say,
I do appreciate your comments.
It was a surprise to me, the funding request, and I think timing is clearly something that may be an issue with you coming into post newly and that sort of thing. But I do think that those points about timing and ward members being made aware of what they will be asked to contribute clearly does need to be ironed out, should I say, for future.
I totally agree.
Do you want to come back, Councillor Leigh? Have you put your hand down? Seem to have lost you. I think he's probably put his hand down. Can you move on, Johnny?
Chair, I think Councillor Anderson has his hand up.
Sorry. Go on, Councillor Anderson.
I'm just asking Johnny, can you, the next time you present it, put the ward figures in the small grants? How much is left for each of us to spend?
Yeah, I can do, yeah.
That's fine. Thank you.
I can send an update outside of the meeting just to let you know.
That's fine. Thank you.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Do you want to move on, Johnny?
Yeah. So I'm now on moving on to the capital budget. So this is the bottom of page 26, paragraph 34. So it's just to update ward members that the Outer North West Community Committee has a capital budget of £50,273 available to spend. And I've put the ward breakdown below. So there's been a new capital injection of £900. And that's just the updated ward balances below. Kind of goes onto the top of page 27. And then moving on after that, we have paragraph 35, which is the SIL budget. So it's just updating ward members of the new SIL budget. So we've had an injection for April 2020, which we've just been made aware of, and an injection for November 2020. So that's just the ward breakdown. So the total SIL balance available to spend for the Outer North West is £193,267, and that's broken up with Adderley and Wharfdale of 11,846, Guiseley and Rawdon with £180,025, and then Otley and Yeadon with 1,436. And that's the breakdown for the SIL budget.
Is your hand up, Councillor Anderson?
Going to ask, is there any way you could put another line in and as to how much has been allocated to each of the parish and town councils in our wards as well? Because it gives a disproportionate look. I mean, for example, it would not tell any resident in Horsforth that the chances are Horsforth Town Council has received, or Rodden Parish Council have received, or in my case, Bramhope, how much they've received in terms of SIL monies, so that people know where to go and get, you know, so that they can then contact those organisations to access the funds themselves.
Liz?
So there was a couple of members at the last meeting that asked, so I've given those figures to them, but I do have the figures from across the city, if that will be helpful.
Is that an offer, Liz, to put them in the papers in future, or is that an offer to consult members outside the meeting?
It's an offer to give you them. Now, I can't possibly put them in the meeting in the papers every time, but I'm quite happy to share what we have already.
I think Councillor Graham has got a hand in front of the screen, so I think it's hand up.
Yeah, just for information, I inquired about a month ago, I think it was, what Guiseley and Rawdon had that, no, more correctly, how much of the parish received, as you might say, out of what was being garnered from Guiseley and Rawdon. I'm not sure what they got, but as far as I remember, we had about 160,000. So the parish hasn't done particularly well out of it. If that was something that Barry was thinking about.
Well, in our case, Graham, only a smaller part of our ward is parish and not much development takes place in that part. I think it's more applicable to wards that are either totally parished or have a heavier parished area.
Yes, I just have the feeling that something can go wrong. It most likely will. So I just wanted to make sure it hadn't.
Where I take it members...
I did provide the figures to the Rawdon and the Rawdon and Guiseley members, Horsforth and other members. I did provide those figures.
Do members want to see their own figures from Liz, or are members happy?
I thought I'd seen mine, but maybe I hadn't. But I thought I had, and I was just going to have a look. I'm sorry, I'm on my iPad now. I had connection problems.
We thought you disappeared very promptly, Councillor Lay.
I've seen the Otley ones because we got them sent.
Yeah, Councillor Collins, you've got your hand up.
Yes, thanks, Chair. The only problem is they change. So just getting them once when we ask for them, I think that's why it would be useful if they were in the papers somehow. So I'm not quite sure.
Councillor Anderson,
Sorry, Chair. The problem is that they're only published once a year, so so we can try our best to give you the information, but it would be only on an annual basis.
Councillor Collins, are you happy with that?
I'm thinking, because I think that the thing is the parishes know how much they've got, and that does change as the year goes along. So I'm surprised that there's information that the city is sending to the parishes that officers can't get hold of. But I accept that that might be the case.
Councillor Graham, after you've got your hand raised now.
Well, that begs the question: what date do these figures apply to? You know, the 180,000 for Gazzy and Rawdon, what was the cut-off date when that was calculated?
Councillor Campbell.
Please.
I was just wondering if Graham wanted an answer.
Well, let's just take all the questions and then let's see if we can get an answer that's satisfactory to everybody.
Well, just on Dawn's point, the parishes, you notice that on the Eden SIL money, there were 2 updates, one for April and one for November. That's when the parishes get the information and get the money, in April and in November. So whatever the figure is in November, that's the amount of money they have at their disposal, because they don't get the rest of the money until the following April. I don't think you can get any more up to date than that.
Councillor Taylor, do you want to come in?
No, I've changed my mind. Thank you, Chair.
Oh. You didn't put your hand down. Liz, is there an answer to this? Is it a case of telling ward members twice a year when they're published what figures they have? Is that the answer?
Well, we can speak to development about, because we've got the only information that we've got is the information that we get given by others. So we can try and give more up-to-date information if you think that'd be useful. I wonder, are any of you parish and town councillors as well? Because I know that that's the case in other areas.
Yeah, we are now. The 3 hand raised, are they all old hands or are they new hands? Because I'm not sure who was first, if they're all new hands. Right, we'll start with Dawn then.
I was just going to say, yes, I'm a parish councillor, Rawdon Parish Councillor, and also Horsforth Town Councillor. But what you're saying to me is I've got to go and find out from the clerk to give the information to my colleagues. I'm just surprised that there's no way that city council officers can't be privy to that information in order to put it in a report. It's just a complicated way for me to find out, that's all.
Councillor Graham Latty.
I didn't know I'd got my hand up.
Yes, it must be an old hand. I did ask Councillor Campbell. Was a new hand, Councillor Campbell? It went down and then came up again.
Yeah, I think the other thing, if you're brutally honest, you need to speak to the relevant parish clerk, because though the council, the parish councils will receive an amount of, they also have the nasty habit of spending it. So at any one time, the only way you would find out how much money a parish had in its SIL pot was to basically ask the clerk, because in the end, our officers don't have access to parish council accounts, do they? So they can't tell you exactly how much money is in the Otley Town Council SIL account, but the clerk to the Town Council could.
But my understanding, Councillor Campbell, is that the parish councils have to submit a return every year about what they've received and how they spent it.
Well, that's true. They are supposed to submit a return, but they only have to submit a return at the end of the financial year. So today, the only way you'd know how much money Otley Town Council has that's SIL money is to actually ask the clerk. You would know by the end of the financial year, but again, that might change, because at the beginning of the next financial year, they might spend all of it on something else.
So perhaps the answer is that at the end of the financial year, we need to speak to the parish councils about an appropriate, maybe in May, is that them giving us a report about how they've spent their money.
Well,
Is that a way forward?
If I can just finish off, I think the problem is that as a community committee, we don't really have any control over what the parishes do with SIL money. Now, we can quite reasonably say, if somebody comes along for, well, I think it's quite reasonable for us to say to the parishes, we both get, and this might be a suggestion, that both parish councils and the community committee get requests for funding. Okay? We all have limited resources. And so the community committee in parished areas would have a different regime to outside parish areas. So we need to know what are the priorities that they're talking about spending money on and what are the priorities that we would talk about spending money on. So that, for example, if a group wanted to refurbish a play area, then we could quite reasonably say, well, actually, that's the area that the parish council are using their SIL money for. So I could tell you what the town council in Otley is using it for, because they have a resolution which says they will only spend it on capital projects to benefit the community. I think as I say, it's not up to us to tell the parish councils how to spend their money, but it's not unreasonable for us to say, well, we don't want to double spend, if you know what I mean. So two lots of people come for a grant. If that's more appropriate from the parish's SIL money, then it should go to them. So I don't think it's unreasonable for us to ask the parishes what their criteria for the spending of SIL money is. Okay?
Councillor Anderson.
Right. This has actually highlighted the point I mentioned at the beginning. The council are going to be taking money from us next year as a community committee based on the fact that we have raised community infrastructure levy. How can the council decide how much to take from us unless they are monitoring it regularly to make sure that there is still going to be a flow of funds coming to the community committee? I'm not, you know, whatever the parish council chooses to spend their money on, I'm relaxed about that. But how can the administration take money away from the community committees next year and make an assumption that because you're getting SIL, you won't need community committee money, which is what they are saying. If they don't have a record of it and we're not being told, how do we know we're getting a fair shake? Because it's unlikely the administration are going to change their minds. So we are going to lose money. So we need to have written evidence that we've lost, for example, £50,000 of our money next year, but altogether we've now gained another 200,000 in SIL money to the area. So overall, fine, I might disagree with it, but we're £150,000 better off. That's what my concern, and that's why I was raising concerns earlier on, is how can, not Lizzie's, it's Lizzie's department, take money off us next year, because one of their arguments is that it's going to get supplemented by SIL money. Well, you can't have it both ways. Either they have a record of it or they don't have a record of it. And if they don't have a record of it, how can they then decide how much they're going to take off us? Unless that isn't the real reason they're taking it off us, that they've got other reasons why they're wanting to take the money off of us.
Liz.
So in response, Councillor Anderson, I've no idea where you think that it's come from. Any decision about the 50% cut has come from?
I didn't say 50%.
Just a minute, let me finish, please. My understanding is that the decision to make a 15% reduction is just part of the council's general decision making in terms of efficiency cuts. It's got nothing. nothing to do with what might be coming in elsewhere. So I'm a little bit miffed about what you're suggesting.
Well, where I'm getting it from is it's from the executive board reports that have been issued in September, October and November. The reports that have been issued to my scrutiny board in October and November, which sets out the proposed savings that the council are bringing forward. And most recently, Councillor Collins and I were at a working group where this was one of the many issues that was brought forward. I mentioned to James Rogers at the time that we need to be sure how much SIL money is going to be created, and he agreed that that is one of the things he's going to have to take into consideration. So it's in the exec board papers that these are the cuts that are going to be made. They're in here. They're in here. I'm just trying to get a bit.
I can. Sorry to interrupt. I can genuinely say that the decisions about the 15% cut is nothing to do with that. It may well be that there is a case that some areas are generating more than others in SIL, but that's not a localised issue. That's a citywide issue. So that may be the case, but I can honestly say, Councillor Anderson, that that any cuts that have been made to wellbeing are based on the fact of what we can afford and what's been spent.
I think the point Councillor Anderson's really making is that the cut is not going to be clearly across all 10 community committees, and that there is going to be a measure used, which is the amount of SIL that's coming in against some community committees and not against others, because some are going to receive more SIL than others. I think that's the point that he's trying to make with regards to that, and I think that's been widely reported that is going to be the case, isn't it? Should the 15% come in?
I think the 15% is across the board. It's not meant to be anything that's.
No,
it's not.
He's waving papers now at you.
No. They've made it very clear.
I can't get into a conversation here. Quite happy to have a conversation out of this meeting about proposals to cut things because of other reasons. But the fact of the matter is, the 15% is based on 15% across the whole of the city, not just in your ward.
Councillor Anderson, do you want to come back?
Yeah, nobody's saying it's just specifically this area, but there is a proposal to cut it. At the scrutiny board, James was asked, how are you going to allocate that? Because we lost out when the council decided to take in deprivation indices into account. We lost money as a result because money was put into the more deprived communities, which is fine. That's a decision. And so I asked the question, is the money going to come out of the remaining, the non-deprivation part? So is it a 15% reduction on the non-deprivation part, or is it a 15% reduction of the deprivation part? Because if it's the deprivation part, then that is going to hit some communities elsewhere in the city disproportionately. And the answer I got back from James at the time was that in areas like mine, you've got community infrastructure levy coming in, and that will offset any reduction that is being made. Because what they're wanting to do is to look at the totality of money coming into each community committee. And as a result of that, they would then make the decisions how to allocate that 15% cut when they looked at all of the, and that was what was in the exec board papers, and that was what we've scrutinised recently and made comments back on that. And to be quite frank, James was quite relaxed about it, because he said, yeah, that's a good point, that we do need to know exactly how much, because the main issue was going to be in the outer northeast, because places like Wetherby were going to end up with would probably end up with nothing, because they are getting literally hundreds of thousands because they are getting a heck of a lot of housing. out in Harewood and the Wetherby areas. So that was all I was. We looked as though we were going to get hit again. And I'm going to make another point when we come to another part of the paper where on PCSOs, we're going to get hit disproportionately on that one as well. You've got a whole lot of debates on bowling greens, closure of other facilities that are out for consultation at the moment. They're all out for consultation. So that was why I was asking for us to put our contribution in to the consultation on these things, because we are told that none of them are in tablets of stone yet, that the final decisions will not be reached until probably January at the very earliest. That's what I was told, that it would probably be January at the very earliest. And until that time, we do have the opportunity to make representations individually as groups, or to get local residents to come in with contributions as well.
I think we've moved on a little bit from getting the SIL figure reported in the papers, which is really where we started this. Can I ask, Liz, that you look into how that can be better reported in the papers? On that fact, and obviously the discussion will be being minuted accordingly, so the comments that Councillor Anderson will be appropriately put into the minutes. But for fluidity, can we move on with the report? Johnny?
Yep, so that's the end of the finance report.
And do members need to note the points A to J?
Yeah, they do, sorry. Apologies for that.
I take it you're noting them by your silence. Okay, can we move on to agenda item 12, which is the update report? Johnny, can you take us through that?
Yeah, I will do. I've got that as agenda item 11.
Sorry, you're
29.
correct. Yeah, I'm trying to press on too quickly. Yeah.
Yep, so agenda item 11 is the update report. So I'll just start on page 29 on paragraph 3. So we've got the champions. So for the children and families, the subgroup meeting last took place on Thursday, the 3rd of September. And as Councillor Pat Latty mentioned earlier, I've got a meeting with Councillor Pat Latty tomorrow to discuss the proposals for the youth summit, because this year we have different proposals to take a virtual event early next year. But no formal subgroup has taken place since the last committee meeting.
I'm going to ask the champions if they want to comment. Don't feel that you have to comment if there is nothing to comment upon. But Councillor Pat Latty, do you want to comment on the Children's and Young People's subgroup?
No, I've nothing to say. I think tomorrow we'll to be quite honest, I'm not sure that we can put a virtual summit on this year, but we need to go through it with Johnny, and it's going to be quite a difficult thing because they want to do it February, March, isn't it, Johnny?
Yeah,
February,
right.
March. And I think it's going to be quite difficult. But anyway, we're going to discuss it tomorrow. Mohammed and Johnny have their ideas on it. So at the moment, I can't say anything about it, really.
Okay, Johnny, do you want to go on to 4?
Yep, so number 4 is the Environmental and Community Safety Champion, Councillor Anderson.
Just the things, we do have concerns. Certainly the chair has been taking up concerns, and also in my name as well, over leaf clearance and what sort of level of service we've been getting. There was an email sent, I think last Friday, I think is the last one that Paul sent, asking for clarification, because that would be useful for us all. I also want to raise that I'm getting more and more concerned about the lack of funding that parks are getting, because parks are needing to come back to us more and more asking for money because they aren't getting enough. And if we are, sorry to repeat it, if we are not getting access to the SIL money, it's going to be very difficult for us to fund things if we can't use that as a potential source of income. So we've got a number of areas where that could become a problem for parks. If you look today in the things that we approved for Adland Wharfdale. That's because parks don't have this money anymore, and there's a number of other things that parks have got problems with in terms of funding. And I've already mentioned some of the other budget changes that are going to be made. They are going to charge more, for example, for bulky waste collections, which I think will lead to an increase in fly tipping. And so we might end up having a problem with that. The department say there isn't going to be a problem with fly tipping. There isn't a problem in the city with fly tipping, but those of us who are regularly involved with this know full well that we do have a problem with fly tipping in the city. So we need to be aware on that. And on the police side of things, is Claire still in the call, or is she gone? She's gone.
She's still in.
She's gone. She's still there. The ASB triage is working really well. The new antisocial behaviour is working really well. I'm just trying to find out from Claire whether or not they have identified a location for where the ASB unit is going to be put in the west, well, northwest and west, because they were looking to try and find new premises. So Claire, is there any update on where you might be moving to?
Well, it's a possibility that it is going to be Armley because of the new ways of working with regards to not all staff being in the office at once. We're going to be sharing the office with the Armley team. So it will probably work on a booking process with regards to booking desks. At the moment, we do have some touchdown desks that we are able to work from the office, because that seemed to be the only place where we could get some space for part of our offices to work, and then obviously part of housing. So it is looking likely to be Armley one stop.
And just to update you on it, where the office is, because it's on the ring road at the moment, around West Park area. That's where it's at the moment. And the final thing. Sorry, Claire, on you go. Sorry.
No, that was it. That was just to say the for Shannon House, we've handed the keys over back for that office now, so we'll not be based there anymore.
Yeah, and the final thing is that certain Liz too much. There is a proposal to reduce the funding for PCSOs in the city, and depending on how that cut is allocated, then there is every chance that we might be on the receiving end of those cuts, because if they do it on crime levels alone and nothing else, then we could be in for a reduction in the number of PCSOs, although the point was made that we need a minimum number of PCSOs to actually operate, and so that might save us, or at least that's the argument that some of us are putting forward, that if you've got 3 shifts, you need at least 3 PCSOs to cover each shift. And so they were going to go back to the police commissioner to find out whether or not he's going to put any additional money in or maintain his money. Otherwise, we could lose. It's the money that the council contributes, about 38, to cover about 38 PCSOs in total. But if the police commissioner puts his money in, I think it comes down that we'll only lose about 18 PCSOs, not 38. If the police commissioner was to do it. So that was just basically the updates that I'm working on. The only final thing is, I've been having great difficulty in getting to work with the police recently, not because they're trying to be awkward or anything, but it's very difficult to get into them. Has anybody been able to attend, albeit virtually, their Skype meetings? Because every time I try and get in, I just cannot get in. And I don't know if there's anything that Liz can take back to the police to try and use something like Zoom or Teams to actually speak to us, because it is certainly a problem in engaging with them.
I did manage to get in, Barry, last week into one.
No, I didn't get in at all. I just couldn't get, the council one would not let me in. It was coming up with an unauthorised link in it, because the council check to see where it's coming from, and if it doesn't fit their criteria, they won't allow you to access it using council facilities, which is good from a security point of view, don't get me wrong. It's a good idea. It just means the police don't find it easy to communicate with us.
Well, I didn't get into that meeting.
I've had 2 and I got into both of them. But
Jonathan also indicated that he was interested in coming in here.
Yeah, thanks, Barry. I had exactly the same problem, and I think I have done with that meeting before.
Yeah.
No, actually, it was the other way around. I think I previously had been the only person that had been able to get in, and nobody else could, which was great on that particular meeting where I had them all to myself. But yeah, since then I've had no end of problems on Skype, and I'd encourage if they could get on and use Zoom for them to do so. Cheers.
I will bring you in, Claire, in a minute. I think Councillor Downs is also waving. He's got a finger in the screen.
Yeah, thanks, Chair. Exactly the same experience as the other. I couldn't log into the first one. I couldn't log into the second. I sent my apologies and said, could somebody contact me, please? And I've heard nothing. So they've been quite rude in not responding to the correspondence I've sent to them to say, you know, please can somebody give me an update, verbal or via email, and B, could you look at an alternative way of accessing councillors, because your system isn't compatible with ours, which works with everything else. Ours works with everything else. So, and I've heard nothing at all back from the police, which I'm very disappointed about.
Yeah, I'll bring Claire in a second. I would just say to members that your group officers can help out. As you know, last week I had a torrid week with this internet scenario, and wasn't confident that I was going to be able to chair this meeting at all. And my office have been very helpful in making some adjustments, which have obviously been successful today. So your group office can help. There are things that they can do. I think there's more that they can do for me if I need it. But there are certain things that can be done to help you get in. But I'll bring Claire in.
Yeah, just to say that I did have a similar issue, and what I found it to be was if I was trying to open the browser in Internet Explorer doesn't seem to be compatible. So when I downloaded Google Chrome, I basically copy and paste the browser address into Google Chrome, and it kind of opened up in there, just as a short-term fix if anybody's struggling with that.
But anyway, all I want to do is just feedback, because my role is to represent you all, and it was getting difficult to communicate and to have the other people that are members of the group in the calls as well. That was all I was doing.
Are we happy with paragraph 4?
Just briefly,
go on, Councillor Downs. Yeah.
Just briefly to come back. That's all well and good with Internet Explorer, Chrome, etc. The only council equipment I've got is an iPad, and I can't access it through my iPad. So. I mean, I will try the group office, but I've been able to get into absolutely everything else with it. Schools, outside organisations, just not the police.
It's only the police that I have problems with as well.
Correct.
Are we through with paragraph 4? Johnny, move on. 5.
Yep, so paragraph 5 is the transport subgroup. So the next meeting will be taking place in December, and that's not been set up because I've not had the confirmation yet. But once I get the confirmation from somebody attending from Metro, that meeting will be set up.
Yep, we do need to get that set up as soon as possible. I thought it had been set up. I didn't realise you were still waiting for Metro. I think we need to focus on public transport, because I think that is the key to getting us back moving again through the pandemic. I think that to a certain extent, the road traffic has changed a great deal over the last period, but we do need to focus on how we deal with public transport, because there are clearly some issues still to resolve there. But that's it from me until we've had the meeting in December. Okay, Johnny, do you want to move on?
Yeah, and the next one is employment and skills. Councillor Downs. We did include an update in the last meeting, so the employment and skills team have agreed to give us 2 updates per year. So as it was included in the March meeting, the next update will be included. So it was included in the September meeting. The next one will be included in the March meeting in 2021.
Councillor Downs, do you want to comment? No? Okay, we'll move on to 6, health.
Yep, so health, wellbeing and adult social care, Councillor Graham Latte. So the last meeting took place in Tuesday the 15th of September. And I've got an update below from John Hinley, who works in public health, with just some messages to share with the committee.
You want to comment, Councillor Latte?
If you're inviting me, yes. Just briefly, I mean, I've nothing to comment in the way of a meeting, but I would commend John Hindley's report to you and ask, certainly and I know that Barry does as well, when posting things out on Facebook, I put all Mariana Pexton's emails suitably filtered. I take names and things out of it and things I think aren't necessarily for public view. But I do find people appreciate that. And I also back it up with the message as often as possible to keep on doing the right thing, you know, the washing hands, the wearing masks and spacing, etc. I think we've got to do our bit because there is no doubt about it. I apologise for talking about the COVID job, but it is all consuming at the moment. But I do think that people need reminding about behaviour, because you've only got to go for a walk or go into the shops or whatever to notice that people take it seriously in parts. And it's the parts where they're not taking it seriously that cause the problems. So anything you can do to spread the word when you're communicating with people, so much the better. Thank you.
Okay, Johnny, do you want to carry on?
Yep, so I'll just turn your attention to the bottom of page 33, which is the updates from the community hubs. So I've received updates from Horsforth Hub, the Geyser Library, the Eden and Otley community hubs and libraries. And if there's any other updates from council services that ward members want me to include, I can always include anything else. And then below that is the update from the housing. So just a brief update on the HAT panel. We've included a bit of detail there, and a bit of information at the bottom of page 34 on the remaining HAT budget, just for information. And then at the top of page 35, there is currently some projects which are in the pipeline, which are being looked at. And then there's a list of bids which have been approved so far this year. And then I've just included the HAT priorities, just to make everyone aware of that. And then on page 35, paragraph 9, it brings you to the appendix. So this is the social media report. And this is at the back of the report on page 37. So it's the Outer Northwest Community Facebook page, which myself and Mohammed manage. So it's just to update ward members on the things that have been happening on Facebook since the last committee meeting. So that page currently has 761 likes, and it's just to update ward members on the things we have been posting on there. And that's the end of my report, Chair.
Do we need to turn ourselves to recommendations at 17 and note the report? I take your silence that you're noting it. Yep, can we move on to item 12, which is the date of the next meeting, is it? Is that all? Any other business? Have you anything else, Johnny?
Nothing from me.
Oh, sorry.
Graham, have you something you're waving at me?
Somebody else going to speak.
I was just going, I don't know, I think Graham's going to speak about what I was going to say.
Go ahead.
Well, it was about the bowling clubs, because we've been getting correspondence that they want our support, and I'm just wondering what we can do to help support them, because it would be terrible if they got closed.
Okay, well, I'm supportive of the bowling clubs. I've had the letter that I think you had yesterday. Yeah. Liz, do you want to come in? Got your hand up?
We can't throw money at it, you know. It's got to be, you know, hounding the controlling group to not just as daft and think about closing things which are the best things in sliced bread for the well-being of old people.
Liz, do you want to come in? I've got Councillor Collins as well, but you want to come in first?
I was just going to mention that in the Outer West Community Committee, they've set up a committee meeting to consult with residents about the closures. We've not got an awful lot of time because the deadline, as I understand, is the 14th of December. But if you wanted to set something up for us to have a conversation, then that's one thing to consider.
Councillor Collins, do you want to come in and then ask her an opinion as to whether people want to do that?
Yeah, I'm just a bit concerned that we don't have enough information. I mean, we've got 2 bowling greens in Horsforth. One I know is well used because I've seen people on it. But the second one, I've never seen anybody on it. And there were rumours 2-3 years ago that the club was thinking of folding. Now, it would be useful to be able to get some information about which bowling greens do actually have clubs, and be able to get in touch with those clubs to see whether they are using them, because I think it would be wrong of us to fight for a bowling green to stay open to find out that there isn't actually anybody using it. Whereas I think if a club is on site and using it, then it's appropriate for us to fight for it. So is there any way we can get officers to look at or find out for us a bit more information?
I'll just bring Councillor Campbell in before
They're well used, the Airborough ones. Very well used.
I didn't see your hand up, Councillor Latty, but I'll bring Councillor Campbell in because he's got his hand up.
Thank you, Chair. I think we as a community committee should take part in the consultation, and I think we should say that we do not support, I suppose, the controlling group's decision to put these facilities at risk. I think, quite frankly, they fundamentally misunderstand what bowling clubs actually do. And they have this vision, I think, that it's the prerogative of pensioners in the leafy suburbs who just pop down there for the afternoon. And they're just not like that. The 3 bowling clubs, sorry, the 3 council-owned bowling clubs or bowling greens in Otley and Yeadon are very well used by a range of people, not just old people, but all age ranges, families, men, women, children. They certainly the one that former councillor Jerry Harper is a member of runs courses for young people from local schools during the summer. They run facilities for disabled groups, people with dementia, etc. So they're actually an integral part of the community, and they provide a sports facility. And this is what's always been something that I could never understand, is that if it was a football field, we were talking about closing them, all hell would have broken out and Sport England would have been down on our necks. Because it's a bowling green and it's not really classed as a sports pitch, even though you play sport on it, it's not the same issue, but it provides the same sort of facility as a football pitch, and it provides exercise for all sorts of people, perhaps some who couldn't run around, but certainly for people who are perhaps not as mobile, it does provide that facility. And I think it would be detrimental to the health and well-being of the whole community if we lost those, and whoever's talking in the background may be agreeing with me, I hope. So I think it's important that the community committee write and say that.
Right, I've got Councillor Taylor and then Councillor Anderson and then Councillor Collins again if she's still got her hand up, if it's a hand for a second time. Councillor Taylor.
Thanks, Paul. I would second what Colin's just said. I think reducing the number of grounds or clubs or what have you, even if they're not as well used at the moment, it could be for a number of reasons, but then would completely limit the opportunity for not just older people, but anybody who has a view or an interest in bowls going forward. Limits the opportunity for that to be explored by them. I agree with Colin. I think the ruling administration and the council have seemingly cherry-picked bits of various different departments to say we'll cut this and we'll cut that and we'll cut the other, possibly to try and get the biggest effect in the media. I don't know, but the response to what's happening at the moment is, in my opinion, quite poor. So I would support this committee writing saying that we don't agree with the path that the council's taking. It needs to look again, it needs to look seriously at what the response to the current situation is going to be, and come up with some serious ideas, not something that's going to save 90k here or 60k there or something like that. There needs to be serious discussions with us included, with the Bowls Federation, who I think has written to us as well. I think that's what they're called, the Leeds Federation of Bowls Clubs or something along those lines. And a proper dialogue, not a short consultation that's ending in a couple of weeks, which is going to have a rushed response from, although at the moment predominantly pensioners who are going to try and get their clubs together to write a response when realistically these clubs haven't met for the majority of this year. So I think we need to be quite forceful in defending what we have in the outer areas, because as we've heard from previous contributions on other issues, we are where the council looks to gut really the services that we have for people. So that would be my contribution. Thank you, Chair.
Councillor Anderson.
Yeah, I would endorse that, and I'd also point out that bowls is intergenerational. It's a sport where young and old can play alongside each other, and where men and women can play on equal terms as well, because it doesn't make a jot of difference, you know, what you are. Everybody is equal on a bowls green. It comes down purely to your ability. But the other thing as well, and it's something that I've raised and I've not had a satisfactory answer to, but the report states proposal to carry out stakeholder consultation on a 50% reduction in the number of bowling greens supported by the council. They will not tell us which bowling greens are at risk either, because it might be, unlikely, but it might be that none of our bowling greens are likely to be lost, but they won't tell us which of the bowling greens are. So I think that's one thing that we need to ask the council for, and to back to take up what Pat was saying earlier on, that if we know which of our bowling clubs are in the sights of the administration, we can then react accordingly. We can then help, you know, where we can with the bowling clubs trying to fight against it, to look to see if we can get any other funds raised to try and help them take it on themselves if the council do go ahead. We need to be able to react to this, because if this is going to start by the time we come out of lockdown next year, then these people need something to look forward to when they come out the far end of this. And if they're looking forward and they can't have their bowling clubs there, so there's a degree of, you know, mental health awareness as well needs to be looked at, and the benefits that they give. And we can hardly be an inclusive city if we are not looking at the health benefits you get from being in the open air, bending up and down, which is one thing that older people goes first in terms of flexibility and various other things. And bowls does enable you to do that, and so there are a lot of benefits that come with it. So I would endorse us doing something about it, and also trying to find out from the council whether or not any of our bowling greens are actually in the firing range, or whether they are not.
Oh, Councillor Leigh, I see your hand now.
There we go. Unmute. Lovely. Thank you, Chair. Just to sort of agree with everything that's been said so far. I wonder how we take this forward, because obviously there's not just the bowling greens. I think there's a number of proposals in this year's budget or administration's report budget that impact on the wider Leeds Northwest. So we all agree about the bowling greens. You know, silver trauma is the single largest trauma that we see in A&E. That's older people falling from standing, as Barry and others have attested to. The bending down, the picking up, etc., is all great for balance and for mobility. So really important physical exercise. We've also, Councillor Graham Latty and members of the Health and Adult Subcommittee, we've talked about over many years the importance of reducing isolation, about loneliness, and bowling greens are a really important area where not just older people, but predominantly older people meet other like-minded individuals. And as Colin says, you know, the one in Otley here, we know delivers schools in primary school sessions for primary school, because both my kids have gone and had sessions of bowling. Great intergenerational work. But I also think that we perhaps ought to have a special meeting where we can talk about the bowling greens, get the information we want. I personally would like us to talk about Leeds Sailing and Activity Centre, because that's a citywide facility that's under threat and sits on and benefits all 4 wards. I'd also like to discuss the proposal to close Ellergill Recycling Centre, because that will have a direct impact on Guiseley and Rawdon, as well as my own ward, of course, as my residents trundle past the closed Ellergill service recycling centre into the Guiseley Gyratory and beyond down to Milner Row, creating even more traffic in that terrible traffic hotspot that is the Guiseley Gyratory. So I personally would like to ask the chair, and with the potential agreement of other members, that we have a special meeting to discuss and get officers here to talk about these proposals, so that we can make our views known and take part in that consultation. Thanks, Chair.
Right, no, I see no more hands. With regards to the bowling in consultation, the time is quite short. So are we having a meeting with representatives, I assume, from bowling clubs coming along and telling us, in effect, what we already know or what we've already said? Or are we going to write to oppose the closure of any bowling greens, as Colin suggests? Where do you want to go with it?
I think a letter. I think a letter, because it's
fine.
so short. It's so short.
Yeah,
But I agree with Stanley.
That would be my suggestion on the bowling green consultation, is that officers are asked to draw up a letter on the basis of what has been said in the last few minutes, and then I will sign that on behalf of the community committee, and that will be sent in. Now, with regards to the other items that you raise, such as the sailing centre and the Milner Road closure, is that best to take that through the subgroups and the subgroup chairs to arrange meetings separately to get the full implications of it? Because I know some things about Ellergill and Milner Road which may or may not be in the public domain. I guess there are things about the sailing centre that are and aren't in the public domain. We need to get to know those. Is that the best way forward? I'm quite happy to organise one for the ones I've within Councillor Pear least to have gone. I'm not sure whether he was happy or unhappy, but I've lost his photograph now. Yeah, I'm quite happy to. I'm quite happy to look at it from the environmental subgroup ones that we have responsibility for. I'll try and set up a meeting as quickly as possible with officers.
What does the sailing club
Are you
come under?
dealing with
Comes
the
under
our guild site, Councillor Anderson?
Yeah, and I presume the sailing, well,
Well,
is
that's
the
the
sailing,
next question.
is the sailing one seen as, is that the responsibility of Parks and Countryside, or is it more?
it's health. It's Graham and myself, and
Right.
but it's the health and active lifestyles that comes under.
That's fine.
So Sailing Club is going to Graham's subgroup, and Milner Road, Ella Gill Recycling Centre is going to Councillor Anderson's subgroup.
Okay.
Is that approved? Happy?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Are there any other proposals that are happening in the other wards? Because obviously, rather selfishly, I've only looked at the impact on my own. I accept that. Yeah. But is there anything else happening in the other wards that causing concern? Or is it just Otley and Yeadon that's been picked on this year? It's not normally us, to be fair.
Well, I've had a lot of complaints about the effect of the swimming pool arrangements being changed up in at the Chippendale, but I have genuinely kept out of them because, as Sandy knows, sometimes the relationship him and I have had with the school hasn't always been great. So what is the update? I mean, it's particularly people in Poole have raised concerns about the arrangements for the pool at Chippendale, but I've kept out of this one.
Colin, do you want to say, or?
Sorry, was that me you were talking to, Sandy? I can catch it.
Yeah. Barry
Right.
wants an update on Chippendale.
Well, I think the point is that the ward members are meeting with officers about it. I suppose it's no secret that our bottom line is to ensure that school swimming continues, which particularly affects Poole, doesn't it? Because Poole school comes up there.
Yeah.
And so we are having discussions. Well, one, we're having discussions to try and understand, because it's very complicated, who pays for what at Prince Henry's, because the pool belongs to the school, but the council appeared to fund things that I wasn't aware we were funding, but there we are. But as I say, I think it's fair to say we've met with officers and we have expressed a very strong view that we feel it would be detrimental if school swimming in effect was withdrawn. It would have an effect on the schools and it would have an effect on children's ability to swim. And I think it may well be that the community committee might wish to express an opinion, because again, it goes back to the health and well-being aspect, doesn't it? Which is, we'd actually like all children to be able to swim, just in case, if nothing else. But this appears to be yet another one of these, I was going to say penny pinching in many ways, financial cuts, because the amount of money involved is relatively small once you take in income and expenditure. And we're really not making what I would describe as a substantial saving here, but actually we're depriving quite a substantial number of people from the ability to swim. I don't know if Sandy wants to put in a bit more.
Well, I think Councillor Campbell, you're wanting a bit more information, aren't you? I don't know whether Councillor Leigh is going to provide information or whether he's just going to provide the fact that he wants further information. I mean, I guess that the swimming does, if we were to take that to the subgroup, does go to health. I'm just conscious the health champion is slightly not there at the moment. But Sandy, do you want to provide more information or just chit chat?
Well, I can provide more information. We have been given some information, particularly around the number of schools that walk to the facility at the moment, and the sessions that they have and how much they're paying. I assume that's commercially confidential, so I can't share that on a YouTube live, I assume. But I can say that all the schools use Prince Henry's Chippendale Pool on one day only. All 6 or 7 schools are using the school on a Friday only. So there isn't little pepper pots of a school for half an hour here on a Monday and half an hour there on a Tuesday. From my point of view, with a full agenda packed on a Friday, there is no reason, with the small amounts of money that the council are proposing to save by closing Chippendale, why they couldn't open it on a Friday and continue to provide local schools, including Poole, with the ability to teach kids to swim. And the council has an obligation. We've been informed that the council has an obligation as the education lead to ensure that that takes place. Only 2 schools use transport to get to it, so the other 4 or 5 are walking to the facility, and therefore there is the impact of the environment of those schools getting a coach, taking the kids to either Holt Park or Airborough, and there's also the impact on school budgets of having to then fund those coach trips. From my point of view, as far as the school swimming goes, I think it's a no-brainer. That I can't see why the council needs to withdraw all funding when all the schools use the facility on just that one day, a Friday.
Councillor Lodge, are you wanting to come in, or were you just waving at me politely? You're muted,
I
Councillor.
wasn't waving, I was muting my microphone.
All right, okay.
I'm content.
You're content. Well, we've got to decide what we're going to do about this. I mean, do we have a meeting about the Chippendale thing? Is it what the Otley members want to do? Is it what the rest of the community committee want to do? Or are you happy to take that on alone at this stage?
Personally, because it was me that raised it, I'm quite happy for them to basically act on behalf of me. And
I was asking the Otley member, Otley and Eden members really, but they don't always seem to want to comment. So I think we'll have to assume if they don't want to comment any further that they're happy to deal with it themselves.
Yeah.
I know, eating me dinner.
Oh, one's having his lunch. And
we're happy to liaise with Barry and the other Adel and Wharfdale members directly.
Right. So that deals with the budget stuff. Now,
I've got one more. The hubs. What's going to happen in some of our hubs that have just opened may end up being reduced down in the number of opening hours that they've got. Now, a number of years ago, we ran into problems when the Citizens Advice Bureau closed their facilities in this area, and if we don't have access to the hubs, or they're going to be open less hours, it's going to be some of our communities are going to not be able to get access to some council services that other people will be able to get access to as well. So it's again a general discussion on whether or not we think that they need to look again, because we just opened some of the hubs. I mean, the one I'd give you as an example is the one at Holt Park. It's just opened. Now, I've asked the question, is this one going to be affected? Answer, we don't know at this stage, councillor. We'll wait and see what happens in the consultation. Well, how do we know whether or not our hubs are or are not going to be affected by this particular proposal?
Councillor Lay, is that an old hand that's up, or is it your new hand that's up? It must have gone. Can you give us any update, Johnny, on where we are with this and the effects on the Outer North West?
What was that, Councillor Wadsworth? I missed that.
Could you give us an update on how we are going to be affected in the Outer North West?
I don't have an update to bring myself, but I can find out and report back to the committee.
Is that going to be satisfactory, Councillor Anderson?
Yeah, because I've been asking the questions and nobody can give me an answer as to which ones are or are not going to be affected at this stage.
So you'll get that update, will you, Johnny?
Yeah, I will do, yeah.
Any more with any other business? Liz appears to have left the call now. I was going to speak to her about the minutes, but could you get Liz, Johnny, to give me a call, and then I will update members about these missing consultative minutes. I mean, there is certainly, for the benefit of the public that are on this call, nothing to hide with these minutes. It's just a case of, I think, dealing with the protocols around the consultative committees and the actual committee meeting minutes. I think Councillor Latty is now waving at me.
Just to request the letter that goes about the bowling clubs. Might we see it before it goes?
Yeah, you will absolutely see it before it goes, because I assume it will be shared, Johnny, with all members before I'm asked to sign it. But if it's not, I will share it. So,
thank you.
Anything else? Okay. The only thing is the time and date of the next meeting, which Monday, the 8th of March at 1:30. And I'm taking it at this stage it will be virtual. Okay.
Yes, I think it will be virtual, Councillor Wadsworth.
Unfortunately, yes. As it is the last meeting before Christmas, I would normally bring you mince pies, but obviously virtual mince pies have not been arranged yet. I'm sure by the time we get to Christmas, there will be some virtual mince pies. I'm sure someone can deal with virtual mince pies. But when I see you, the sooner the better. I'm happy to give you a mince pie and buy you something else if that is required. Until then,
June, that'd be nice.
Speak to you later. Thank you for attending.
Bye.
Thanks, everybody.
Cheers.
Bye.